Hi everyone, this is James and I'd like to welcome you to the Kipper-Cast for the month of November 2025. And as I'm saying that, I cannot believe that we're on the heels of November already. The year has gone by so fast, or at least that's my perception of, of time these days. But again, thank you for being here. If this is your first time here, I'd like to say welcome. And thank you for stopping by for a visit. And if you're a returning viewer and subscriber, thank you so much for returning back to the channel and for supporting the work that goes into the channel when you subscribe. So as I said, we are going to be working with Kipper for this Kipper-Cast, and specifically I am working with the Kipper deck that I made recently, sometime this year. This is the Mitchell Kipper. And if you want to know more information about it, I do have it available in my Make Playing Cards Marketplace site. So I will be leaving a link to that in the description box below. And I also want to say thank you to those of you who have already invested in the deck. It means the world to me that you would consider adding this deck to your personal Kipper card collection. Okay, so as this series has gone on, I have been putting on my thinking cap in terms of creativity, in terms of what I want to show with you all, because the impetus or the inspiration for this video series has been those people in my viewing audience who work with Kipper and specifically wanted to work more in depth with the different categories of Kipper, because there are 5 within the Kipper card deck system, at least. That's what I have been taught as a student of Kipper, and a lot of you gravitated to that and wanted to see more interaction or interplay between the categories. So that has been the inspiration and the intention of every video that I work with. But as a reader, for my own personal practice, I'm always one for playing with spreads, tweaking them, coming up with different ideas for those. And so this spread that I want to work with was inspired by the activity taking place in my other video series, my Oracle Outlook video series. And if you've been watching those videos, by the way, if you have been, thank you so much for that. But if you've been watching those, you have noticed or have been aware that I've been working with lines of 5s in different variations. And so I've lately been doing line of 5 readings where I'm focusing one line on relationships, one on money and finance, one on work and career, and then a 4th line, more of a general kind of collective group reading. So I had the idea that I would combine them all into one layout. So in this video, I'm going to be doing 4 lines of 5s as a tableau of 20 cards, and the top row in my mind is going to focus on what do we need to know about relationships over the course of the month. The second line would be what do we need to know about money and finance over the course of the month. The third line would be what do we need to know about work and career over the course of the next month. And then the final line would be kind of like as a bottom line, what do we need to know just generally speaking, like what is the bottom line of the events that could transpire over the course of November 2025. So with that intention, I'm going to go ahead and take a few moments to shuffle the cards and lay them out. Alright, as you can see, the cards have been shuffled, cut, dealt, and laid out. So like I said, this is a tableau of 20. I guess I'm going to call it that for the time being. In the video title, it may be saying something different, but in the moment that I'm shooting this, I'm going to call it the tableau of 20. And so like I said, each line is going to focus on a different area of life. So like I said, the top line is going to be relationships. The next line would be money and finance. Next line would be work and career. And then this would be more generalized collective type thing, or we could look at this as the bottom line. Okay, so as I was preparing to shoot the video, I had the idea that first and foremost, because if you're no stranger to the way that I read, you know that I like to look at cards that I call the heart of the matter, or the focus, or the central issues, yeah? So this is just going to be no different. I'm thinking that these two cards here, because they are actually in the middle of the tableau of 20, are going to represent the heart of the matter, or the central issue, or the focus. So starting with the card here, I'm going to turn that over, and here we have Hope Big Water. Okay, so now for the month of November, because that is the context for this read, is that the Hope Big Water card is a card that talks about our hopes, our dreams, and our wishes, right? So there's going to be a concerted effort or some focus on what it is that we're hoping for, wishing for, and dreaming for in terms of our lives, right? I always go with the idea that the anchor in the image can also represent stability. So for some of us, it could be that we're hoping for, wishing for stability, right? There's that. And then also too, I look at the anchor as a fixture, right? And so with that, it could also imply that we're wanting to have some areas of our life fixed. And so now remember, now this is going to be the money and finance line. So I find it interesting that it's there. So for some of us on a monetary level, we have certain hopes, wishes, and dreams that we would like to see. And it could also be in terms of firmly rooted, firmly established with our financial pictures, yeah? But generally speaking, if I go with just a heart of the matter type thing, then this is about our hopes, our dreams, our wishes, right? Now there could also be some focus on things of a foreign nature, or things of an international interest, because the Hope Big Water card can also represent, because of the imagery of the sea, right? It could also represent things that are taking place overseas, things of having to do with international waters, so to speak, right? So there may be some hopes, wishes, and dreams concerning foreign issues, foreign affairs, foreign matters. So that's what I would see with the Hope Big Water card. And as I was about to go on, the last thing I will want to share about this card is that for those who are spiritually inclined or spiritually minded, this is a card that can represent our spirituality, and it could also represent things of an intuitive nature or psychic nature in terms of specific areas of interest, right? So for some people, it could be that you're being encouraged to focus more on your intuitive nature, your feeling nature, because our intuition works through our feelings, right? Or it could be that you are really focused on your psychic development, right? And it could also be for some people that there may be some travel, going to a different place in the world to further your psychic development, right? So that's what I want to say about Hope Big Water. So now let's take a look at the card underneath. And here we have the main person one card. This is the male significator. So here we have a person, right? So this could be a person who's going to be a central player in how things unfold in the course of the month. Yes. And so the way this works in terms of Kipper is that a card that's above the significator card could be something that he is thinking about, right? Or something that's influencing him because it's above him, right? So there's a couple of ways to read that. So again, this could be a man who's specifically focused on his hopes, his wishes, his dreams, right? Attaining some sense of goal, right? This card can also be about goal attainment. But it could also be that he's thinking about something that's taking place in another part of the world, right? And it could also be, too, if this is influencing him, then he's being influenced by maybe his intuition or his spirituality or his psychic development, right? And putting more trust in that, right? Now, he's also in the line of work and career. And so if you've been watching my Oracle Outlook videos lately, we've been having this as a phenomenon in this particular line when I do them separately, is that we've had a male significator playing a central role or part in how things unfold regarding our work or our career. So this is going to be interesting to see what's going on there. So that's how I would look at these two cards in the moment. So now, the way that I have designed the deck is that the red bordered cards are stop cards, right? And so what they do is that they can play a role in the reading where they kind of slow it down or bring it to a sense of pause, right? And then the white border for the main person one card it denotes a significator card. The main person one card and the main person two cards are the only cards in the deck with a white border because I wanted to separate them from all the other types of cards, right? So that's what I want to offer in terms of design and aesthetic, and so that helps me remember what category a particular card falls into, which is, again, the inspiration and the impetus of this particular video series. We call it Kipper Cards by Category, right? Okay, so that's what I want to say about those two cards, and so now what we'll do is we'll start by opening the Tableau up, so to speak. So here we have Win Lots, and so Win Lots is a card that talks about financial windfalls. I have in the image a slot machine, so this can represent luck, fortune, increase. It can represent a lot of something. So now remember, this is in the line of relationships, right? So it may not, in this particular context of this line, it may not necessarily be something of a financial nature. It could represent increase or a lot of, or a sense of abundance, right? So we'll have to see what the other cards have to say about that. And then closing the Tableau out, we have Thoughts. And so now Thoughts is a stop card, red border. And so Thoughts in traditional Kipper cartomancy is known as his thoughts, right? And so one of the meanings it can represent is that it talks about the thinking or the mindset of a particular man. And if you notice, main person knights to this card, because what you want to do is you want to go down one and over two for knighting, and it knights to this. So it's very interesting. We have an interesting interplay between the main person one, male significator, and the Thoughts card. But in and of itself, this card would suggest at the end of the month, if we go with the idea that this is covering a whole month, even though we're looking at different areas of life, that it's going to end with this idea of something that we need to think about, something that we need to consider, something that we may need to either research or do some analysis around. This card is also planning, so making plans for the future, right? And so it may be based on our hopes, our wishes, our dreams. This month we may get the impetus to start planning for the future, right? Now, if I go with the idea that Hope Big Water is a spiritual card, then this is talking about the practices of meditation and contemplation. And it could also be, if we're talking about intuitive and psychic development, this is my card in the deck for being a reader, because I have him reading a tablet, right? So he's reading. So that could be a pun for people incorporating reading into their practice, right? Or, starting to do some research, some analysis around that. And if it's not about that specifically, can it just be about doing some research and analysis around a specific topic of interest regarding one's spiritual growth and development, yeah? So again, this card would be about doing some research, planning for the future, or literally reading up on something. Now, the fact that the two corner cards are stop cards could suggest that maybe there's not going to be a whole lot of progress being made throughout the month, but we'll have to take a look at all the other cards in terms of category. Okay, so that's what I want to offer just in terms of a general type, how to approach a Tableau type situation. Okay, so now let's take a look at all the other cards. And so I'm going to start by just taking a look at the individual rows. So now if we go back to the context that this is going to be about relationships, let's take a look at the middle card here. And so here we have young gentleman. So if you notice that this is a purple bordered card, and so in my deck, the purple border cards represent people. So here we have a relationship. If I kind of just go here, we have a relationship between a man and a younger man. Young gentleman usually represents a man who is younger than main person 1 or main person 2, right? So this could be focusing on a younger man in the context of relationships, right? And we'll add a little more nuance to that. This is a card that talks about, for me, business and finance if it's not about a person. So if we add all of that together as kind of a mashup, then this could be, the focus on a younger man who could be involved in either business or finance. So that could be the context of the relationship, right? This might be a business relationship or one in which there's a focus on money and finance. And then that would make sense with win lots, yeah? Especially with him looking towards win lots. We call this line of sight. Then this might be, while this is the focus, looking towards increase, financial increase, right? And it may suggest that if this is a relationship that has some level of finances intertwined in it, then it could be about, taking a risk or a gamble, because the slot machine would indicate gambling, right? So now if we take it out of that, it could be like there's a lot, or giving some kind of more value to a relationship with a younger male in particular, right? Okay, so now let's take a look at the card in between. And here we have child. Okay, so now child can literally represent a child, right? This card, the child card, can be about a child who's in his or her formative years. Like usually this is about toddlers, right? Infants and toddlers specifically, right? So this could be young gentleman, and child could suggest that there is a young man who has a child of his own. That's one possibility, right? And there's a relationship between the two, right? Or trying to bring more value or enhance a relationship with a child, right? That could be one possibility. Another possibility is that the child card can represent something that's new, something that's beginning, something that's starting out, or something that is in its infancy stage, yeah? And so here, if we go back to the idea that this might be a business type relationship, then it could be something that's new and beginning and forming, but with the idea of bringing more value or increase into the situation. Right, so there's that. And then the last thing I will say, because the child has a stork behind him in the image, that for me this is about expectations. Because for me, growing up, one of the things I was conditioned to believe is that storks delivered babies to expectant mothers, right? So that's all a pun for expectation for me, right? So there could be a lot of expectation on a relationship with a younger man, or a lot of expectation placed on a business relationship, yeah? So those are some other possibilities for this line. Now, going on, and here we have gift coming after that. Okay, so gift is a card that talks about something being offered, something being presented to a person. So that makes sense if we're talking about maybe an opportunity for increase, right? And then that would make sense about the offer or the presentation, right? Now it could also be about an exchange, right? In the image we have a gift that's being exchanged from one set of hands to the other, right? So this could literally be an exchange or something that's being passed down or handed down, right? And again, that might necessarily involve a younger man. Right, so he could be the principal character here in terms of what's being passed down, what's being handed down. Now the other thing here that could be happening with child and gift is that these two cards can be talking about a visit. So, and then this card in particular can be talking about something for the holidays, right? So we have in the month of November the Thanksgiving holidays, right? So this could be something that could be unfolding over the course of the month, but it could also be with the slant on the holiday season or Thanksgiving in particular, right? So that's what I'm seeing with that card. And now the way this card works, this is a green border card, which means it's a movement card. And so you want to pay attention to the card that comes beneath the gift card in this particular case, because it can add more nuance to what's being handed down. So we'll have to remember when we get to this card to see how that brings more nuance to this particular line. Okay, and then ending this particular line, we have the Great Fortune card. Okay, so what I love about this line is we have win lots, and then we have Great Fortune. Great Fortune is the best card in the Kipper card deck system. It usually outshines any other challenging or negative cards, and its chief meaning is about blessing and abundance, right? So we have that theme of abundance bookending the line, right? And so this card is also about harvest, and it's not lost on me that I talked about Thanksgiving here as a holiday with this card, and then we have the harvest, the cornucopia in the image on the Great Fortune card, right? So there may be something about our relationships, especially ones that focusing on the younger set, young man or children, and over the holiday season, and maybe specifically Thanksgiving, right? Now it could also be that if this is the month where Thanksgiving falls, if it is the month where Thanksgiving falls, then it could be about expressing gratitude for a particular relationship, one involving a younger man or children in our lives, right? And how those people can be a blessing, right? A gift to us, right? So that's what I would see with this line. And then if I go back to the idea about a business relationship, possibly speaking, then it could be about there's an opportunity being presented that could potentially be very rewarding with win lots and Great Fortune. Okay, so that's how I would look at that line. So now let's look at the next line below it. And this is the line that's going to be about money and finance. So let's see what we have here. Opening this particular line up. So we have Good Lady. Okay, so now let's not lose sight that we have a central card here that's talking about our hopes, our dreams, our wishes, and maybe the hope, wish, and dream of a little bit more stability when it comes to our finances. Now, Good Lady, purple border card, so it is a person card. This can represent an older woman. Now remember, in the story of Kipper, main person 1 and main person 2 are the main significator cards. So in relationship to this card, this would be somebody who's older than main person 1. And look, let's take a look. He knights to Good Lady. So here we have go over 2, up 1, right? So there is a potential relationship when we get to this line about an older woman and main person 1, a male significator. Right, and now interestingly thing to note is that she's looking outside of the line. So when that happens, it could be somebody who is either moving out of the situation or looking for an out of a particular situation, right? So now remember, this is the context of money and finance. So, or it could be somebody who's very helpful. Now it would be dependent on what this card is, but she could also be the jumping off point for this, right? She's maybe the main character in this particular situation. Now, the fact that she's not looking at all the other cards would suggest what we call inauspicious placement, which means that for her, in the context of money and finance, that she's going to be experiencing some challenges because she's not facing any of the cards. So here, it would be there's going to be a challenge for her regarding her hopes, her wishes, and her dreams, possibly for stability. Right, okay, so now let's take a look at the card in between. And here we have sad news. Okay, so this makes sense, right? So here, sad news is a card that can represent sadness, upset, and disappointment, right? Now, usually it can talk about, receiving upsetting news, disappointing news, news that evokes sadness, right? but I'm going to go maybe more generally speaking that this is a card that's just talking about upset, disappointment, and sadness, and this is why. So now the yellow border indicates it is a cause and effect card. So cause and effect cards work like this. In this particular case, the card that's behind sad news is the cause of the upset, the sadness, or disappointment. So here we have hopes, wishes, dreams, trying to attain a goal or hoping for stability and security, right? That is the idea of what's causing the upset, the sadness, the disappointment. And then the card in front of it is going to be the effect. So an older woman is going to be affected by upset, sadness, or disappointment. Okay, so now let's move on to this card on this side. And here we have another cause and effect card. You see the yellow border. And here we have the expectation card. Expectation can represent our needs, wants, and desires. It's a card about expectation, anticipation. It's about looking to the future because she's looking out of a window. So that could represent our outlook for the future, right? And if we go with the imagery, she's looking at this card, right? So it could be about the future outlook pertaining to hopes, wishes, and dreams. And as a cause and effect card, the expectation, the need, want, desire affects the hopes, the wishes, the dreams, yeah? And so now, the way it works here, that this card would be the cause of the expectation. And here we have, ooh, look at this. I wasn't thinking that main person 2 would show up. I thought it would be cool if it did, but so here we have the cause behind the need, want, expectation. Here we have a woman who's playing a central role or part in the need, the want, the desire, right? And that's going to affect hopes, wishes, and dreams. And so now we have a relationship dynamic here because we have main person 2 and then good lady on the opposite end. So we have a relationship, yeah? And this is the dynamic between the relationship between the two women. Right, so this could be a woman and her mother. This could be a woman and her older sister, a woman and her cousin, any woman who could be older than her. Right, so again, if we keep it in the family context, it could be mother, grandmother, sister, cousin. Now, since this is about money, this could also be a woman who is a senior or has some level of authority in the life of this particular woman, right? And this is a dynamic between them. Need, want, desire on her end. And then also to sadness, upset, disappointment regarding her, right? Because she's going to be affected by that. So would it imply that that's also coming from her? Right? But her need, her want, her desire is going to affect her hopes, wishes, and dreams and possibly attaining something, which leads to upset, sadness, disappointment for or towards an older woman. So that's how I would read this particular line, right? And so now let me come back here. Because remember I said the card that was underneath the gift card would be what's being passed down because the direction, the movement goes from here down, right? So there could be influencing the gift. There's a need, want, desire, or an expectation or an anticipation for either a literal gift or for something to be passed down or regarding a particular offer or presentation. And so we can add that to this line. Okay, and so I'm looking, and the interesting thing that I notice here, before I move on, is that good lady, knights to young gentlemen, and main person 2, knights to young gentlemen. So that could be an area of focus between them, right? In addition to this, but also this. And then interestingly enough, going further, they both knight to main person 1 as well. So here, if we just kind of put that all together, as a diamond, 1, 2, 3, 4, there could be a situation involving multiple people. So we have main person 1 and 2. That could be literally a couple or people who are on the same level. So this could be colleagues or peers, depending on the relationship, right? If it's a business relationship or a working relationship, let's say, right? And then this would be maybe a person in a senior position of authority or a more maternal figure between the two. Then we have them thrown into the mix. But this could be a situation that involves multiple people. Okay, so let's move on to the next line. Now remember, if this was relationships and this was money and finance, this is going to be work and career. So remember now, we have a man who's playing a role or a part in the way that somebody's working life is going to unfold over the course of the month. That's the context in terms of timing for the reading. So opening this line up, we have a long road. Okay, so this is about going the distance, right? So this could be now with direction in mind. If this is, he's not facing these cards, I should say, then this could be the past or inauspicious placement, and then this would be the future, right? What he's actually looking forward to in terms of what's unfolding over the course of the month. So now, this is a movement card, and it kind of carries the same movement as gift, right? So it goes like this. So we want to pay attention to the card above here, and then the card below here, right? Because this card would imply destination, going down the road. And so there could be down the road, there could be something that involves an older woman, a woman who has some level of maturity or experience, right? Or a person who is a female authority figure, right? But like I said, this card can represent going down the road, going the distance. This card would talk about 1 year's patience, 1 to 2 years patience, right? So this could be something that's unfolding. And since it's in the start, it could be like having patience for something down the road or something that's going to be off in the distance, so to speak, right? And that would make sense with thoughts, right? At the end, remember that thoughts was about planning for the future. So that would make sense here. Okay, and so the card next to it is success in love. So now this is a card that can talk about success. This could be a good outcome. But it's also a card that talks about relationships because there's 2 turtle doves in the image. So this could be about with the dog as well. It's about friendship, companionship, partnership. So if this is a working read, then this could be people who are working together to maybe achieve something, but it's going to be a long way off. And then the dog would imply having faith because the dog can represent faithfulness. And it could also be about trusting your instincts. Right, so it could be whatever this situation is. If it resonates, this could be about success, but it's going to be down the road. It's not going to be something immediate or overnight. Now, it could also be about one's path in life, right? So somebody is maybe taking a certain path or a certain road, or maybe looking for direction. Right, the dog could indicate guidance, looking for direction about how to move forward or what path to move down. And remember now, this is the context of work and or career. But if you're not a working person and for some reason this line is resonating with you, then this could also be about, what you need to quote unquote work on or what business at hand you need to attend to. Because I'm noting that success in love, knights to young gentlemen. That's the business card in the deck. And with that in mind, if you're pursuing a path or direction, then this would imply, moving into something that you believe that you are suited for or well suited for because the gentleman is wearing a suit in the image. Right, but again, this can be about partnership, trusting your instincts, faithfulness, loyalty, and then the dog would also represent help, support, or guidance, or advice. Now, it could also be, too, that he's challenged with this, right, inauspicious placement. So it could be a man who's challenged with his particular path or road or moving in a particular direction, and challenged with either partnerships or trusting himself, right? Having faith in himself, trusting his instincts. Or if you're a woman and this line is resonating with you, then this would be a man who's playing a central role or part in that. And then that would make sense here because this could be a partnership with a man. And then that would make sense too with him knighting to main person 2 and she knighting to young gentleman. Right, and so now let's take a look at the cards he's facing. Here we have court official. Okay, so now court official is what we call a connector card. It has a pink border. And so with that, a connector card connects cards on either side. So it connects main person 1 with this particular card. So now court official can represent needing to go through a necessary process. And I talked about here about help, support, guidance, and advice with the dog in this image. This can also mean the same thing. It could involve the help, support of a neutral third party. That's the idea of the judge in the image, right? Now it could also be, in the literal sense, somebody facing something having to do with a legal matter or legal nature and getting counsel or being counseled on that. Or again, it could be working with somebody who is an advisor. This is also known as an advisor card, or a consultant. The dog can be a consultant and mirroring the 2 cards. But now, the judge in the card can also represent using our judgment. So we have about instincts here on this side and judgment here on this side. So judgment can also be about discernment, yeah? Or the idea about needing to make an important decision, right? The judge is a person who rules on things, makes verdicts regarding things, right? And it's based on information presented to him or her at the moment, right? It's based on, weighing the pros and the cons, or weighing the evidence being presented, things like that. So now let's take a look at this card. Remember now this is going to be connected to this card. Okay, so now here we have Get Together. And so Get Together, as you notice, is another pink bordered card. So we have another connector card. So Get Together, will connect to Court Official. But now remember, these 2 cards are connected because of Court Official. So Get Together is a card that talks about the public. It's about other people, groups of people, things having to do with the public or something of a social nature. So whatever this decision is or this process is, at the end it's going to involve other people. So now this could be about meetings and sessions and appointments too as well. And I'm just going to jump for a moment to this card. These 2 cards here, if this is about an appointment or a session or some kind of meeting, right? Then this would be about getting it on the calendar. This card is also about scheduling things and getting things on the calendar for me. So it could be like going forward, whatever this is that this person may seek the advice, the counsel of a neutral third party, and it may require connection. It may require getting a meeting or a session or some kind of appointment with that person. But it could also be just generally speaking for this man that, in terms of his path and direction, how do other people play a role or a part in that? And it could be like he's looking forward to becoming an advisor to other people. All right, so that's what I would see here. And so now I'm going to take a look at the final line. So now remember that this bottom line would be basically a kind of general collective group type line to read, or it could be like, what's the bottom line here with all of this other stuff, right? Okay, so now central card here is young lady. So we have a lot of people cards in this tableau. And so young lady is the converse or the opposite of young gentleman in this regard. Whereas this could be a younger man, this is going to be a younger woman. So now in terms of, a group read or something having to do with the collective, there may be a younger woman who's going to be playing a central role or part in the unfolding of a shared experience, right? Now, if it's not about a person, because just like young gentleman has an additional meaning of business and finance, she can also represent fun, beauty, creativity as themes. She can also be about a person who is like one's girlfriend, one's BFF, that's best friend forever type thing. Now, she also has line of sight. She's looking this way, right? So there may be some plans for the future involving a young lady playing the central role or part in that. And then these cards would be either what's in her past or what's considered inauspicious placement. All right, so now let's take a look at this card here. And here we have change. Okay, so change, as you notice, is a green border. So we have movement here. So change represents a change in circumstances. And the way it works is that the car in the image is the visual cue. And it's moving away from whatever would be here. In this case, there isn't a card here. But moving more towards this, right? So for a young woman playing a central role or part, there's going to be a change in circumstances. Moving towards theft. Now, theft is a yellow bordered card. It's a cause and effect card. So while this card is moving towards this, change in circumstances towards this, theft is a card of loss. And the way it works is that, for me, is that the card behind it, the movement is here, the card behind it is, quote unquote, the scene of the crime, where the thief is leaving, right? And then here we would have what's being affected. So the way that these cards would read would be that there's going to be a young woman, possibly, who's the cause behind a sense of loss. And that's going to affect a change in circumstances moving forward, right? Because this is a movement card. Now, if it's not about a young lady, remember, this can also be about fun, creativity, beauty. So it could be, the sense of fun, being robbed of a sense of fun, and that affects or that's going to play into a change in circumstances, right? So that's what I'm seeing here. And then moving to this card. So the last card, we have false person here. So now false person is a cause and effect card. Okay, and the way this one works, the chief meaning of this card can represent dishonesty, right? You can see in the image there's a woman who's hiding behind a mask, right? So this can be about something that's being hidden, something that's being concealed, or somebody, when it's connected to a person card this close, proximity, this could be somebody who's insincere or being dishonest, that kind of thing. This card can be about pretense, right? Because a false person card, even though it has the word person on it, is not necessarily about a person, first and foremost. It's usually about something being wrong, something being off, something being a mistake, right? So since it's this close to her, it could be read two ways. Number one, it could be saying that there's going to be a young woman playing a central role or part, but she's being insincere, dishonest, or she's using some kind of pretense. Now, the other possibility is that, cause and effect is that usually the card behind false person is what's being hidden and concealed, and then the card in front of it is what's being affected. So it could be that there's going to be a young woman who's going to be affected by something being hidden, concealed, masked, even. Now, the other thing about false person, for me, this is a card that can represent actors and actresses, right? Because they play a role or they play a part. That would be the mask, right? And so this could be, what role or part is this young lady playing in regards to loss, right, decrease, that kind of thing. And how will that affect things going forward? Right, and so now let's take a look at this dynamic here. If false person is the card and this is the cause, then this would be about plans for the future. And so remember now, this is what's being concealed. So this could be about plans for the future being concealed, things on the calendar or scheduling of things being concealed. And again, either a young lady's going to be affected by it or she's playing a role or a part in it. Which could lead to loss going forward. And, having a change of circumstance. Now, we mirror the two cards. Mirroring is where you take a card on one side of the line and pair it with the card on the same, in the same position on the other side of the line. So here we have change and thoughts. Here we have a change of circumstances regarding plans for the future. Right, and again, if we go with the idea that maybe it involves other people and scheduling things, but there may be some changes to that. And then if I'm, go with the corners, I did the corners on here. The corners on this side could be change in circumstances involving fortune. That's blessing, abundance, things like that. So that's how I would read this entire tableau in the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here. If you made it to this point in the video with me, thank you so much for giving me the gift of your time. I never take that lightly. And I hope for those peeps out there, my Kipper peeps, who have asked me to continue working on this series and giving examples of how the cards could interplay with each other based on category. I hope you found this helpful for your own Kipper cartomancy practice. So again, James and Mitchell signing off. I look forward to seeing you in this space for our next Kipper-Cast, and that will be for the month of December 2025 and wrapping up the year. Can you believe it? I said at the beginning, I can't believe how fast this year has gone by, and as I say those words, I'm reminded of that. So until then, be well, take care, and have a great month.